Welcome to all of our clever agents and investors nationwide. Today is Thursday, April 17th, 2025. And this is All the Leads Mastermind podcast number 524. I don't have anything to open with. Nothing that I can think of anyway. As always, we're always looking for your win of the week. We had a good one last week, and we will set you up with some free leads, credit towards your leads if you share that. Oh, Scott's got his hand up already. Awesome. Tim, what would you like to open with?
I'm going to show you. Hang on one second. Scott, unmute yourself. Hey, bud, what's up?
On. Yeah, I got my website back up for the all the leads and gonna start re-engaging in that. But I got a lead already, so it was from a referral. But a lady's father is in the last few weeks, unfortunately, of treatment of cancer. It's probably not gonna make it. She's on the will. That's all I know so far. She's the only heir. And I'm just trying to help her set things up to where over the next couple of months, she can get everything she needs to do in order. And I kind of wanted to maybe get some feedback on a checklist of some things that, I talked about estate planner, if her dad had an attorney or an estate planner or anybody that had, information about, I always think the transfer on death, or if that's what it's really called, on an estate, because she's the only person on the will, so it should avoid probate. But I just kind of want some feedback on maybe some things to hit as a checklist for her to make sure she covers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just remember that even though she may be the only heir, there may be a lot of claims on the estate. That's part of the reason that it has to go to probate. It's not just to, establish the will. Initially, the whole purpose in probate was not just to do that, but it was to allow an estate to be open so that all the creditors could file their accounts. And when it was all settled, then it would close that period where anyone could file against the assets of the estate. So that's one of the purposes of probate. So kind of need to keep that, make that aware. I'm assuming there's a PR at this point, or is she the PR?
She is. So I guess my question is, if I opened up title, would that be a good way to find out everything that I need to know, if there's any liens or any, no?
No, because it's not just against the house. It could be, that the person who died owed a big loan. They had a bunch of other bills that were outstanding. I'm not suggesting that they are. I'm just saying all of those things are against the estate. The real estate is only part of the estate. I mean, their big assets could be a stock portfolio as an example.
So what are some of the things that I should, is there a way to avoid probate? How do you avoid probate? I mean, nobody wants to go into probate if you don't have to.
Set
Well,
up
you
the trust.
depends on how you set it up to begin with. A lot of people work against the trust and all that. Some states you can't avoid probate. There are a lot of different. Where are you located, Scott? I'm trying to remember.
Florida.
Seattle area.
Yeah.
Um,
So go ahead.
a
Her
lot of this is going
property's
to
in
depend.
Arizona though. Just this, her father's property's in Arizona. So
A lot of this is going to depend on how many assets there are. But, and I don't know Arizona, but you could always try to do a ladybird deed and make her a beneficiary on the real estate. If that happens, the house at least can avoid probate. So, one of the things you could do is rush to put a trust together and put the assets in a trust. That's a rush because you're dealing with someone who's probably not going to make it that long. I'm not sure you'd be able to get everything done fast enough, but individually, you could look at the individual assets, bank accounts, vehicles, stocks, retirement accounts, houses, and make as many of them a beneficiary asset, immediately transferring to her on death as possible. The cleaner way to do it is to create a trust, and she's the beneficiary of the trust, and then put the assets in a trust. Takes a little bit of time. Probably not going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Bruce, how would he, or not how would he, but how would they post-mortem assign those assets to the vehicle you're talking about?
It's not post-mortem. He's
Or
still
how to
alive.
avoid it? I got it. I'm sorry, I missed the point.
Yep.
Doing it
Yeah,
before death.
In this
he's
case,
done.
you can't do anything. It's done. Whatever's been done.
No, in this case, he's still alive.
Yeah.
I thought he said
Yeah,
it was,
she's thinking they're telling her maybe 8 weeks or so, a couple months. So she's going down to Arizona like today or in the next day or two. But she's a friend of mine on Facebook. She knows I'm in real estate. She reached out to me and she actually wants me to help her sell the house in Arizona, which obviously I'll refer to somebody I know in Arizona. But I'm just trying to get her set up so she doesn't get into a bunch of legal stuff. And she's meeting with his insurance person and all the, retirement accounts or whatever that he had set up. But I don't know enough. I just know that she's the only one on the will at this point. She has
Hey,
the will.
sorry,
Scott,
and
I
I
may,
apologize. I missed your point in the beginning. I thought that the death had occurred. She was already the administrator and it was already in probate. I missed your point. Jim, what were you going to say, bud?
no, I was just going to say the most obvious thing is go send notary legal out to the hospital or wherever he's at. If he's still conscious, knows what he's doing, get a quitclaim deed. Have him just deed it over to her. Then you avoid everything. You avoid probate. You avoid all the issues. She'll own it when she'll own it while he's still alive.
We also are under the assumption with any of these solutions that he doesn't owe money on the assets. If there's a mortgage, if there's a bank loan on vehicles, anything like
He's not
that,
swapping anything.
becomes a little tiny bit more complicated. Not overly complicated. It can still be a beneficiary deed, a beneficiary title on cars, bank accounts, anything like that. But if there's money owed, there's just an extra step or hoop or two to jump through. It's not going to be too bad.
That wouldn't preclude a quitclaim deed, though. Doesn't, regardless of what's owed on it, he'd be the owner of record.
Well, you can't quit claim something that you owe a mortgage on.
Oh, sure, I've done it many times in Florida. Sure, I mean, they could call the mortgage due.
Yeah.
You can quitclaim a deed, and he would have the title. He'd just have to pay off the mortgage out of the estate proceeds.
Yeah.
No, no,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's some hair on that approach.
Hmm.
Just because you're quit claiming it to someone that doesn't own it, the bank's going to want their mortgage paid. They're going to want it due. It's probably going to trigger a due on sale. It's going to look at it like a sale.
yeah.
Now, if you were moving it into a trust,
Right.
a land trust, that's safer. But we're looking at 6-8 weeks that this gentleman's going to be alive. Can it be done in 6 or 8 weeks? Absolutely. But you got to get on the ball. Get on the
And
ball.
Scott,
I'm
one
not
thing that-
sure that there's a mortgage. She said he's got the car. I don't know. I'm just helping her get the steps. You guys are helping me ask the right questions. That's
I mean,
And
here's
Scott, I've purchased
Not a
many
problem here.
properties. I purchased many properties where they've quitclaimed it to me with a mortgage, and I took it subject to, and years later they never called the mortgage due. That's respectfully disagree. I think that's the easiest approach to be, but if there's no mortgage, it's no issue at all. That's great.
the thing that while he's still alive, and I'm assuming he's able to communicate and do it, in helping her, if she's got to settle the estate, ask her to see if she can find out what, if anything, are any outstanding issues that, he needs to clear up. Dad, what did you owe? What do you owe? Tell me what's cooking. Do you own stock? Do you have, maybe she knows all of that, but I mean, it's just a standard list of assets and liabilities. That's what's got to get dealt with at probate anyway. If she's going to be the PR, she's going to have to find all that out. She's much better off doing that while he's alive rather than going to have to hunt for it. So
Right.
big time, go do that.
yeah. She's actually leaving in a day or two to go down there and spend the next couple of months handling all that. So she reached out to me to help her about the asset or the estate. But I've avoided a few probates and I've had some success with finding out enough to be dangerous, but I don't know. I don't consider myself, whether I'm certified or not, to be a probate expert. So
You need to
of
take
all the
Bruce's
things
course.
what's that?
I think
You
he
need to take
has.
Bruce's course. Yeah, get
I need to
certified.
take it again.
A
I
lot of your
took Chad's
questions,
a
a lot of
long
your
time
questions are in his training. He's got it there. He outlines it in
ago.
spades. And then you can go back and review it too, which is nice. You can always check in. Not that you can't ask questions here. It's a great forum to do it. But once you get it, you'll have it. And I think when you're dealing with someone who maybe wants answers, you're in a better position to give it to them right then and there. Not to say you'll have all the answers. Some you'll need to research. But I'd really look into probate mastery. I know it was very helpful for me. I think it'll be very helpful for you.
Yeah, I took it originally with Chad, so that's how I got involved. But what
Retake
I
it. He just
remember from
updated it.
that and now is a whole nother story.
You know, and it's something you got to go through again. I went through it before these guys asked me to be a coach. I went through it, recertified, and Bruce has improved it. So it's not like there aren't updates to the program.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot of updates. More on the way.
Scott, the only other,
Cool.
just real quick, and Bruce, I want to go back to that. The only other thing I was going to suggest is that if you get a sense from this that there is a large amount of money going to move on death. In other words, if it is a big estate, if the property's worth a lot, it's free and clear, there's a lot of money involved, then helping her find someone good to work with in regard to financial advice is also something you should definitely help with. And that's a value that you should always be ready to provide to anybody that's dealing with probate as part of your, here I am, and here's what I can offer to help you with. And that's one thing that, if you can get some sense of the size of everything by talking to her, then, you may be able to really help her. And, you can also build up great points with a financial advisor by making that match for her. And they can be a great source of referral for you as well.
Yeah, it's a 55 plus community in Arizona that, they're probably worth $500,000 is all. But I don't think there's a mortgage. But again, I'm just trying to get the steps in line to get some answers. So thank you guys.
Hey, bud. Thanks for the good question. That's great. As Scott did, folks, if you have a question, you want to ask anything, talk about anything, we don't just talk about probate here. Ask anything about divorce, ask anything about, the business in general. We're here to help you. This is your call. We'll certainly give you our wide variety of opinions and advice as best you can. And there's some really great experts on this call that really know it and live it and do it every day. And so we're happy to do that. To do that, just click on the bottom where you either see the heart or a hand icon. And either one of those, depending on your browser and your copy of Zoom, will allow you to raise your hand. And there you go. And that will allow you to get called on. Hey there, Mike. Unmute yourself there, bud. Great.
Okay. How's that?
That's great. What's happening?
Well, occasionally I will run into a situation where the parents are the PR and the decedent is, a younger person, 26, and it really sets me back. I don't know if it's because, I have kids in their mid-20s, and if something like that happened, I can't imagine. So I'm just wondering if any of you guys have a special approach for that kind of situation. I'm kind of at a loss how to go forward. And so I won't, approach them.
What's your approach when you're dealing with more of a traditional probate? You've got a parent. What's the approach with the child of an older parent that's passed away?
It's an initial mailing, 9x12 flat with a pen, information about probate in Montana, and the cover letter offering, services at, no cost, explaining only, get paid off commissions. And I'm happy to help folks with, references or that kind of thing. So mailing, follow-up phone call 2 weeks later, second mailing, follow-up phone call, and I'll do that for 6 months.
What's the overall message of the phone call? And is the mailing, is it a little bit real estate forward, or is it real estate secondary?
Oh, definitely real estate forward.
Okay, got it.
And, offering to help with things that, their attorneys can't do,
Sure.
helping to secure the property, let in, vendors or anybody that needs to deal with that, provide fair market value estimates, all that stuff. And the phone call, the first one is just checking in to make sure you got the stuff I mailed, and if you had any questions, that kind of thing. So,
So, the approach that I take, and I'm actually using an approach that's a little bit more like this, even with more of the traditional elder parent that is represented by their probably 50-year-old child is typical. Okay. Um, the approach that I take with them, and I especially double down on this approach when I'm dealing with a parent that's lost a child, is, hey, I reach out to provide guidance and resources through the probate process. Not necessarily selling anything with my resources, although I do have a couple of services that I can directly provide if they're ever needed. I was wondering where you were in the process. Is this something that is brand new to you, you've never done before, or do you have a really good handle on it? And depending on how their response is, it'll lead into some of the things that they need. So most people go, you know what, kind of have a handle on this right now.
right.
It's a soft
And would that,
approach. It's not
would,
targeting real estate.
okay, would that be just a call first without a mail-in?
Not necessarily. Some people do a mailing first. Some people do a call first. I think it's both, because you don't know what they're going to respond to.
Yeah,
For me, I'll usually do a mailing second. A lot of people do a mailing first. That's not a precise, exact way that
sure.
everyone needs to do it. You should do both.
Yeah, right.
Which
Okay.
goes first? I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered just the intro, or if there's some way to convey that, they've been through an extraordinary loss, like
Mhm.
that. It's unexpected. We're all expecting our parents eventually,
Mhm.
but how do you come across as, being really sincere and saying, I do want to help you. I don't want to, I'm not trying to sell you something or take advantage. And I know you must be devastated. Um,
So I kind of let them bring it up. This is me personally. I let them. So I'm reaching out because you've recently applied for probate. I kind of reach out with some resources and guidance, and then I let them say, "Hey, this was what the relationship was to me." Sometimes they say, "This is my dad's, and we haven't talked in 20 years. I have no emotion." Sometimes they say, "This was my mom, and I saw her every day, and I'm going to be devastated for a long time." Sometimes it's, "This is my child. I can't believe this happened." I kind of let them give me a clue and as to where they are with that relationship, and I may leave the door open and kind of ask for what the relationship was. But I don't just automatically roll in with a insanely high degree of emotional empathy. I'm very empathetic. Don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of waiting on them to say, "This is who I lost." And
yeah,
then for me, I like to dip deep into emotion and then climb out of it. Some people are totally fake with their emotion and they go, "Oh, I am so sorry. Hey, let me tell you what I was calling for." And you can just hear that like fine line between I was faking the emotion and I'm out of it now. And then other people don't give any emotion at all. I like to go in and then I like to climb out because I don't want to be treating them with kid gloves through the whole conversation. So I like to climb out of it over about a minute or so on the phone. So I am so sorry. And this is pretty authentic to me. I don't know what to say to friends when they've lost loved ones. My response to anyone when they've lost someone is, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say." Okay. It may be a flaw in myself, but that's usually what I'll do. But I don't want to hang out in that low emotion because they don't want to think about it. The longer they're trying not to think about the pain. So the longer I hang out there, the more I'm highlighting the pain for them. And that's just kind of bringing more negative connection to our relationship. So I want to go into the negative, I want to go into the emotion, but I got to pull out of it at some point as well. And
Yeah.
so for me, the message is resources and guidance on probate. Yes, there are some services, but I'm here to provide resources and guidance. And then I'm going to ask a question that steers the conversation. I've got to steer that conversation. And personally, and this is personal, um, I'll teach 5 or 6 different ways. If somebody wants to go real estate forward, I'll tell you how to go real estate forward. But personally, I like to kind of ask something about the process. Hey, are you guys just getting started with probate, or is it something you've been in the middle of for a little while? Um, I don't care what their answer is because the next thing I'm always going to say is, I'll tell you what, since you're in the middle of it or since you're just getting started, let me send you some resources that might help through the process. And then only thing I would ever ask is you hold on to it. If something comes up that you need, you give me a call. Is that fair? Never had, I shouldn't say that. I very rarely have anyone that says no to that.
Mhm.
Now I can turn the conversation somewhere else. Can I ask, one of the things that I provide are when there's assets that need to be sold. Is there anything like real estate or anything that needs to be sold, or is it just way too early for you guys to have decided on that? 9 times out of 10, it's too early. We don't know yet. I've got all the information I need. Okay. I'm going to try to stay on the phone and talk to them and build some rapport and a relationship, but I have all the information I need. You told me you just started the process. You told me that there was a house. You didn't even necessarily mean to tell me. It's too early to decide means there's a house that's probably going to be sold. And you gave me permission to send you resources. That's a good person for me. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
kids, when it's someone that's a kid, um, oh, you be a little bit more empathetic, lead into it a little bit slower. I'm definitely not going real estate forward, definitely not on that call. I'm going resources forward on that call. You can keep to the real estate forward on the other calls if you want, but when there's a child involved, go resources forward.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
Mike,
Mike, the couple of times when I was working the leads that happened to me, I was blindsided. I may have missed it, but I'm curious, how did you know the relationship? Are you getting Property Plus, or had you researched it? How did you know that was what was going on?
Um, yeah, I pulled the application for appointment and
Gotcha.
it got the relationships there.
Okay, interesting.
Mike, one of the things that you also, Bruce alluded to this in the beginning. One of the things that you can do is that if you get your letter out there, and that's one of the first things that you do, and I sort of advocate for doing that because there's never anything wrong with doing that. If you put that out there and you refer to all of the services that you offer, you basically kind of lay them all out. Then when you make that call and you do get them on the phone, to say, well, if you got my letter, you'll note that, you'll be aware that I do provide a lot of services to people who are experiencing probate regardless of the circumstances, and start in on that conversation at that point. If they'll tell you, just like Bruce said, they're going to tell you what you need to know without you having to ask in most cases. And that's really kind of the point. But that letter being out there and in their hands accomplishes 2 things. It separates you from everybody else because you're not leading in that letter. You're not leading with the real estate. We certainly encourage you to lead with your value, lead with the services that you offer. And that way, any one of them could be something that they really need, they don't know about. And whether it's a young person or an older person, you come across not as a predator, but you come across as somebody got services to offer. That's what I'm here for.
Mhm.
So I'd urge you to, get that letter out, put the letter out, put your, what we call the wheel of probate in there, where you're showing graphically all the things that you can offer to them and be of assistance in. And they'll appreciate that. They're going to get the phone call from, the investor who says, hey, you got a house to say, I saw there was a death. They'll get that call. that's going to happen, but that's not you.
Right, right. Yeah. And I do have the threefold brochure of the wheel as well. So that I usually do that on the second mailing, but sometimes I do it all.
Mix it up a little bit. You make a good point there, and that's you got to always kind of be testing. So, maybe one time, instead of sending that second, sending it first, put it out there first with a cover letter to go with it, and get their attention. Say, I hope you got my letter, and in it I kind of told you a little bit about what I do, and in the brochure that was in there, I talked about all the things that I offer. Have you had a chance to read that yet? I know it's a tough time for you. I don't, you got a million things to think about, but I'm here to help. Where are you in the process? Just like what Bruce said, that's a great way to kind of find out where they're at. And it's just a conversation. It's sadly, one of the things that we do try to say is avoid being a fake. You don't want to come off as being overly sympathetic because you don't know the person that died. You can be empathetic. You can know that it feels bad to lose a loved one, but you don't know that relationship until you get in that conversation.
Right.
Yep. I was just having a coaching call earlier today, and I think this is a really relevant point that I want to make. Our job for ourselves is to create relationships. For the average person on here, the average person on this call is a realtor. I know there's plenty of you guys that are investors as well. And this applies to both of you, realtors and investors. Your job is to create a relationship, and we need to recognize, especially those of us with a license, that most people know other licensed agents. Most people going through probate, especially if we're in a market that has any size to its population, if they didn't know an agent or an investor before, they're certainly going to know of a few now, because they're going to get reached out to. They're going to get mailers, things like that. So I want to tell you guys about the financial advisor that I don't use. Okay, a financial advisor I don't use. I had a run in with a financial advisor one time at a networking event, and we got along great. We got along. I really, really liked this guy, and he asked me to go grab coffee with him one day, a couple of days after. We show up to a coffee meeting. He brings me like a book, and we had a good conversation. And I was like, this dude's awesome. So a few weeks later, a month later, we run into each other at another networking, and he said, "Hey, we need to go grab lunch." Yeah, let's do that. We go grab lunch. We have a good conversation, and he tries to close me. Not a problem. I respect a closing ability. He goes, "Bruce, what's it going to take to get your business?" And I said, "You want the truth?" "Yeah, I want the truth." I said, "I know about 130 of you guys that are in the financial services industry." And I said, "I'll take my business to the clear number one." And right now we've known each other for about a month. Because of the effort that you've put in and your likability, you're top five. Said you're top five. I've got a few other people that I would put there as well. When I have a clear number one, I would consider switching. I thought I gave him a really, really good formula. Never spoke with him again. Not because of me, but because apparently my answer was telling him, "I don't like you enough." And that wasn't what my answer was intended to be. My answer was intended to be, "You're clumped together with 5 or 6 or 10 other financial advisors that I like all of you similarly. I trust all of you similarly. I haven't known you that long." That's what my answer was intended to be. When we create a relationship with our prospect, especially someone going through probate that's brand new relationship. We didn't know them before that first call or that first letter that we sent. They didn't know us. We have to recognize that we are on an equal playing field with anybody else that's potentially marketing to or prospecting to them. An equal playing field. It's your job to separate yourself over the next 6 to 8 months. Now, maybe they're going to go faster. I want you guys to know that sometimes people sell a lot faster than that. But many times they don't sell faster. It takes them 6 months to get through the minutia of probate to get to the point where they're going to sell. It's our job to use that runway to create distance between ourselves and anyone else that may have lightly pursued the competition. And we can't get offended in the first 2 months if we didn't get the listing, if they listed. We can't be offended. Somebody else did a better job of separating themselves. Okay. So once that conversation happens, don't turn your mailers off. I would double down. Don't feel like you're over communicating. Um, be a little bit cautious. Don't like go out of your way to call them every day, but don't feel like find excuses to put value in front of them and separate yourself. And if you look at it like a runway, a 6 month runway, nobody with the right plan, no competition, no competitor in my market is going to outperform me, is going to outpace me from a marketing and a relationship building standpoint. And that's what I want you guys to look at it just from a frame of mind. Look at yourself that way. I've got 6 months to be the most valuable person in this family's life. 6 months. And recognize in the beginning that there's probably 10 other people that are right there with you. Your job is to outpace the competitor. So do that with mail, do that with calls, do that with videos, do that by dropping things off. Think, just brainstorm, what can I do to outpace anybody else?
And ask, you can also ask the question. You're going to be maybe making a decision. That's a great conversation there. What are you looking for in the person that you decide to work with? That also will help you, just like what Bruce said. He was basically doing the guy a favor that he talked to. Uh, Always do research with the people that you're talking with. What are they looking for? Know your market, know your facts, know everything you can, but it's always good to ask as many questions as you can. You got you got them on the phone, get the questions answered. It's important to do that. Steve, go ahead, bud.
So much like Bruce said, the folks who are calling right away for the property, all they care about is the property. It's transactional. That's not what you're doing. You're trying to build a relationship. That's what's going to make the difference here. It's going to take time. And the initial calls, much like Bruce said, a lot of discovery going on with this financial advisor. Okay. Okay, he got it. He knows a bunch of folks. Bruce is pretty well established. Wasn't ready to move. This guy, it was more transactional for him. It sounded like it was relational, but it's definitely more transactional. That's what he's looking for, because Bruce hasn't heard from him. Well, what does that tell you? And one of the things you have when you send out something, Mike, you send a brochure or the wheel and the trifold, and you email it to someone. You get that email address. That's social capital. I mean, in terms of being able to market, that's the way to go. And oftentimes you can set up a funnel where emails are dropping in that person's box, and they may or may not be ready to open it. I mean, that's the beauty of email, right? The email comes in your phone. Maybe they check it, maybe they don't. But typically when people go into email, they're ready to look at email. And whether they open yours up right away or not, the idea that you're seeing your name or your logo in their inbox realizes you haven't given up on it. And at some point, and typically with probate, it's taking care of all the other stuff. And we'll get to the real estate, kind of like Bruce said. What helps them getting to the real estate is when they start seeing the holding costs on that property, particularly if nobody's living there, because they still got utilities, other these things. So that's got to come from somewhere to be paid. And eventually they're going to have a conversation, maybe even one of their siblings. Well, this guy reached out to me. Why haven't you reached out to him? Well, I'm kind of busy. Well, what's it costing you? So in other words, there are conversations are going on behind the scenes you may not even be aware of, but just being patient and trying to build that relationship, reaching out to them. Hey, I had some time today, came to mind. I wanted to see how things were going for you in the probate process, and let them vent, because this is something that's been foisted upon them, much like you said. They're mourning the loss of someone, and our leads don't tell us who they are. Right? That's part of discovery. But you still, loss, and every circumstance is different. But it's listening to them, finding out, hey, what can I help you? What can I help you with today? What can I take off your plate today? Bruce is really good about raising that issue with folks, because it's not a yes or a no answer. And they realize, okay, this person's really here to help. They're not even talking about real estate. It could be something else. Hey, I got a bunch of holes in a wall. Okay, I've got a guy that can come out and do drywall for you. How about I make a connection with him and you, and you can set up a time to get it done, and reiterate that no one gets paid until the work is done. So discovery is so key, and it's being patient. It's nurturing. That's the difference. It really is. So every call, it's a matter of discovery. Just keep that in mind, and I think you'll be fine.
Good
You're on
advice
the
there,
right
bud.
track.
Excellent advice. Dill, I'll get with you in just one second. Melinda and Alyssa, Melissa, I know you have some questions in the queue. We'll get to you in a second. Dill, I'm going to go ahead and unmute, and we'll take you for a second here. Go ahead.
I have a question and statement. The statement is a little funny, so we don't have too much time. So just go to question. One of the clients I just sold the property was the personal representative. He was not getting any share of the inheritance other than a small fee of a few $1,000s. The property was going to, that was his uncle. Property was going to the kids. They sold a wonderful relationship. His wife's mom just passed away. And obviously that's part of the list and they're there, but he already knows me. So he mentioned that to me. She just passed away and the house was in a trust. But mom left two sisters, his wife and his wife's sister, in charge, co-managing it. And they do not like each other and in a constant battle for a few years. And his wife's sister have a best friend who's a broker. And she obviously want to list with her friend. And they want to list with me. And this is a scenario that he came up to me and said, no, I don't know what to do. So I offered, I said, look, I will meet with her as well. I will make my case as a pure presentation, no relationship to you. You're my client. So I will be a second sale for me. So I will provide everything I can in a fair manner to both sisters. And then let them interview the other broker as well. And then from that point of view, then they will decide who is better. And we'll just leave it at that. She said, I'll try, but apparently the sister don't care. She want to list with her friend. Doesn't matter. She's a part-time agent, don't know nothing, like literally one sale a year kind of person. So they already know that what they're going into, she know nothing. And the sister acknowledges that, but still it's her friend and she got to go with them. And the sister who's on my side just did the stay with them. They don't want to hire that person because they know they lose money with that setup. How to go about it where they can make sure that I'm part of the picture? How?
So I think that you've done your part on pitching yourself to get the interview, get the appointment, relatively low pressure. Hopefully it gets conveyed that way to the sister, because sometimes it's a game of telephone. You said this and they said, Dill said that you have to meet with him. Okay. Sometimes it's not properly conveyed, but I think you did a good job. Now, if you get the appointment, I'm just going to lay it out and I'm going to see what kind of reading I'm getting on the sister. Me personally, and every there's going to be at least 60% of this room that disagrees. If I'm getting a bad reading on the sister that is still leaning really hard to her friend, I'm going to say, hey, and in some cases with my experience, I may be able to teach another agent. I would even consider co-listing. Now there's 60% of the room that's going to go never co-list. Okay. I would. If my reading of the sister just tells me that I don't think I've won her over, and it's going to be hard to win her over because she's stuck. Nobody likes to change their mind. I'll probably throw it out there later in the meeting that, hey, sometimes I would consider co-listing with a newer agent that's less experienced, and let them get the experience. At least they're involved in the deal that you want them involved in.
I think that's a good strategy. I mean, I actually, believe it or not, maybe I took the step too early because I knew I'm trying to get a meeting with the other agent, with the other sister. So I had told my client, who's basically very confident. I mean, he loves me. He's crazy. So he just said, we were talking to him. I told him that if it's possible, I would be even open to, because your sister-in-law have such a strong relationship with her friend for last 20 years or 30 years, and she's a part-time agent, I don't mind going in and I will share the listing with her, even though she's new, no problem. I will do all the marketing. I'll do everything I need to do. She will get paid just because she's her friend.
Mhm.
And that's it. So, and I will take on the burden just because I want to make sure that you get the highest possible price, because the agent really is, basics, don't know anything about technology, the difference between email and the website, forget that kind of level,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just small statement. Years ago, I was competing along with like 10 agents for a listing. It was not a state, it was for sale by owner. And after getting the business, I asked him, why did you pick me? And I always used to do that when I was a competing agent. So, and I got probably the most honest answer I ever got. And it goes along with your conversation with your accountant. He said that with everybody else, I could tell who was lying to me. And I could I mean, he's a smart guy. He was in a financial kind of business. So he was like, I was able to tell who's just BSing me and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They just want to get a listing. But with you, I was confused. I couldn't figure it out. So I took a chance.
Nice.
I was like, wow, that's the most honest thing. I didn't get upset. I'm like, thank you. Now my job is to prove you right.
So basically, your new strategy is you're going to be really confusing, and that'll work for you, right?
Love it.
That's
Hey,
great.
along those lines, before Steve jumps in, Gil, I was going to say, if all else fails, you might want to say something like, if the other person's going to get the listing, well, I'm just curious, how long were you planning on listing it with her for? And whatever they say, you act surprised. 6 months, really? and then keep in touch with them, because you'll be, if she isn't good and it doesn't sell, you'll be the next one up. But I would try to subtly get her listing as short as possible, and reach out to her to see how you can help as you go, and be second in line, if it doesn't work out with her.
Steve, I'll get to you in just a second. I believe it's Kristen, asked an interesting question, and that's called saying an open listing, which is that whoever actually brings the buyer gets the listing. I've not heard of that. Has anybody else done that?
Yeah, it doesn't go in MLS though, an open listing. It's just basically, which is a disadvantage, big disadvantage.
Well, I think that the point behind what maybe she's saying is, it doesn't matter who lists it, whoever brings the buyer, if it's me or the other agent, if they bring the buyer, then I'll earn the listing. I think
But you don't have exposure to MLS.
It's hard to bring a buyer when you're not marketing a property.
No, I understand. I'm saying if it's already one or the other, I can put it online in the MLS side, but won't basically, I guess they would potentially have an agreement that, the commission would be passed on to the winning agent who brought the listing. I don't know. It's a question somebody asked. I just thought it was an interesting question.
The brokers would have to agree to that, but I've never seen that done.
I haven't either. That's why I brought it up.
Interesting.
It's an interesting idea. Steve, go ahead, bud.
So, Dill, something to consider too. One of the things that we provide is a value, right, to any given, and then solutions. And I think that's what you lead with. Look, I'm here to provide solutions for folks to make the most informed decision, and be willing to co-list with that person to assist. In other words, you're bringing value. Sure, if you work it as a co-list, sure, there's a market share for you, right? But the idea that you're trying to provide a solution to them and the value to that first, you lead with that first, may be exactly where you need to be. But I like what Jim said too. Okay, so if you list with that person, how long are you on for? I hope you sell the house, but if you don't, I'd like to be right there to assist and then list the home, depending on where the conversation goes. All I'm looking for is trying to help you solve your problem, which obviously is no one's holding on to the house and you want to sell it.
That's right. Thank you.
And Dill, before you go, it sounds to me like you're our winner of the week so far. It sounds like you got a deal. Didn't you mention a deal? Prior listing, your associate in the background's applauding you. Before this story, you told me that you had actually gotten another. Well, this all started with a listing that you got from the leads. So you're currently in first place for winner of the week. Congratulations and thanks.
Wow.
Follow-up question for Bruce. as a realtor, because I'm not a realtor, Bruce, in order to market a home, don't you have to have it under contract?
Have a listing?
Listen, yeah.
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 Don't you have to, I mean, to literally go out and market it. How do you market it without a contract or an agreement that says you can go market my home?
Yeah, you do, but you can have a non-exclusive or an open listing. So and it doesn't have to be completely formal. Just they could send you an email and say, hey, send my property to people. It should be in writing, but that would be kind of a non-exclusive or what Kristen referred to as an open listing. Um, I'm typically gonna lean toward co-listing. I don't do it very often. I don't like doing it, but it's better than no business at all.
Right. Something from nothing is still something.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
Bill walks away, he gets nothing.
the way I look at it, the other agent is not a broker. She's a part-time agent, probably a nice lady, and I know dozens of them on Staten Island, right? So if she's a part-time agent with the broker doing one deal a year, it's my opportunity to pick her up as an agent by the time I'm done with the transaction.
Sure.
It's
I
an
got nothing to
opportunity to
lose.
mentor. Exactly right. It's an
So
opportunity
if
to
I
mentor.
offer her the commission, I get over, she'll go back to hibernation and one deal a year.
Jill, did you actually say that you know at least a dozen nice ladies?
More than that. This is the business.
I love that line, yeah.
I thought you said, I know at least a dozen of them on Staten Island, no less. That's good.
I heard that too, Tim. Sounds like Gil's a player.
So it sounded like the
No, you're gonna get me in trouble with life.
that's cool.
Johnny,
Lionel, I'll get to you in just a second. I want to get these two questions that came in earlier. Melissa asked in chat about just a straight up question, which is what is the best CRM? We're going to give you a kind of a smart alecky answer, and then I'm going to tell you maybe some better tips to answer it. But I mean, the best one is the one that you're actually going to use. And truthfully, there are a lot of good CRMs that are out there. Of course, with our leads, we build one into our system, and it's, it comes free. It doesn't cost you extra to use it, and it works great for working the leads that we provide. It's a great way to look at them, a great way to work at them, and all that. So certainly take advantage of the one that we provide for free, and if it'll meet your needs, that's great. You can also export your data right out of our system into any other thing that you want to go use. But the reality is that it depends on your business, how you do your business, and all that. And we're pretty agnostic about systems. It's literally, what are you going to use? Are you using one now? If you're using it, great. Are you using it to its fullest potential? If not, that's fine. But don't get trapped into the, system analysis phase of your business. That's really not where you make your money, is picking the best of the best. It's literally getting something that you'll use that's focusing your time correctly. And that'd be the best answer I could potentially give you there. Anybody else have anything to chime in with that? I've got one more question that was phoned in, Bruce or other coaches.
Yeah, depending on where she is and where she's starting out with, if she's got something that's established, use that. And for someone who's maybe coming in as brand new, doesn't have anything, don't spend the money. The CRM is there. I mean, you could probably look at more sophisticated CRMs, but your virtue of your subscriber account, you're getting a CRM provided to you that is very useful. And when you call those leads, particularly if you have other business, that keeps it, there's a bright line between that and other things. So I would really consider, you want to pay more money for something when you have something that's very functional to help you do what you need to do.
And Steve, I was going to add too, if you're using any of our other services like mail or the ISA calling service or anything, it's all tied together. It's so much easier.
It's integrated.
Just
right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. We sort of purpose built it to work around the leads that we provide and the system that we recommend, because it'll handle your mailing and all that. And of course, as we begin to add additional services that we can help you provide and automate, they'll all be built into that system. So, it's a place to start and potentially a place to finish. You can work the deals there, and we're going to keep adding to it. But what we're not trying to do is to be something for everybody. We're not trying to compete with all the other CRMs that are out there. They're literally, there are probably 100 real estate CRMs that are out there, and all of them have, their claim to fame. And the reality is, the thing I started with is the truth. It's, what are you going to use? What are you going to have the discipline to go use? So once you find one like that you're comfortable with, then that probably is the answer, at least for the short term. other question that Linda asked is about pre-foreclosure. And Jody, I'm going to ask you to comment here in a second about that and talk about our late product. And I think that probably would answer the question, because we don't right now sell it as a pre-foreclosure product. Jody, why don't you talk a little bit about the late mortgage product?
Yeah, we draw the distinction between pre-foreclosure typically means there's been a public notice of default or a lease pendant, it's called some places. So with our data, it hasn't gotten that far yet. They're 60 to maybe 120 late. So good opportunity to get in there and connect with them before they get too far down that road. So that's really what makes our program unique there, and gets you an opportunity to get in front of those before they're pre-foreclosure.
They know
obviously
they're late, but the world doesn't know it.
Exactly. Yeah, the beauty is you got very little competition. Once they get 2, 3, 4 months behind, they're probably not going to get caught up. But nobody else knows yet, so you don't have 100 people contacting them. It's a nice sweet spot for sure.
And that's going to be the case pretty much in everything that we deal with. We don't do Me Too products. We typically try to find a niche or an angle that makes it more valuable to you, rather than just, here's another lead you could go buy. For example, on our divorce side, we only will provide divorce leads where we can provide them on filing, not on decree. Because if you get it on after the decree has already been made, the divorce is already finalized, then at least half of the opportunity potentially is gone already, because whoever was going to move has moved already. And, there are a lot of things that have already happened. If you get it on filing, first of all, you may get a short-term rental out of it, because a lot of divorces that get filed never get finalized. It's also true that they get filed and they get unfiled and come back and forth, and that happens 2 and 3 times to do it. I mean, those are the realities of relationships. So we try to find those kinds of things for you. And the same thing with our late mortgage product. We feel like it's superior in every way to a normal NOD based pre-foreclosure product, because the competition is much less. So I think that's the important piece. And I'm afraid I lost our caller there.
Yeah, Lionel had his hand up. Lionel, you want to raise your hand again or unmute yourself?
I don't see him in here anywhere.
Huh.
Looks like he dropped off. Maybe his connection went down.
Yeah.
Well, if you get back on, bud, we'll be happy to talk with you and want to answer your question there. All right.
Because I'm sure he can hear us.
Pardon?
I'm sure he can hear us.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. He was anyway. So that's kind of it. We're heading up to the top of the hour. If anybody's got one last question they'd like to ask, we'll be happy to take it and talk about it. You got anything exciting you want to tell us? What's going on in your world or anything like that? Otherwise, we're going to get out of here on time today, I think. We'll take one more round. If you want to raise your hand, do that. If not, Jimmy, I'm going to kick it back to you, Bubba.
And Dill just had a question. Oh, never mind. That was between Dill and Bruce. Okay, Kristen's got one. Go ahead, Kristen.
You got to unmute. There you go, Kristen. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. So I I just took my agent test over the weekend and passed. So trying to kind of understand how I incorporate this as an investor agent, if I should heavily lean on it or not. I know I have that option now once I get, officially onboarded with a broker. But just some tips from that perspective, being newly licensed, but kind of been working it from the investor angle.
Yeah. Kristen, first, congratulations. It's a great step that I think a lot of investors need to take. You're gonna, depending on your market, you'll have a certain percentage of people that just won't take an investor offer. Depending on your market, there's markets where it's 80% are going to go to an investor. There's markets where it's 80% that are going to go to a realtor to list. So what I like to do is just through the discovery conversations is say, hey, you guys are going to sell. What's your timing? Is this something that you are looking for fair market value on, maybe through a listing, or are you more interested in kind of a cash offer to an investor, and see what they say. And then I'm going to do the same thing when I get face to face. Hey, here's a couple of different options that we might do. We could get you a cash offer within a day, or I can make you one right now. It's going to be a little less than market value, but I can get you closed with no repairs and nothing really quickly. Or we could go fair market value by listing you and getting you a little bit higher, but there's going to be some work that you need to put in to the process. Which one are you more interested in? And they'll tell you where they're leading. What you don't want to do, and I've run into this so many times because I've got close friends in my market that are investors, is make the investor offer without asking how much they want for the house or which strategy they want. And then if it pisses them off, it's really hard at that point to say, hey, let me bring my real estate agent in, or let me make you a listing offer. Because now you've kind of lost them. So I like to present the two strategies without giving numbers and see which strategy they want first. And once I determine which strategy they want, then I can start putting numbers to that strategy.
And Bruce, if I could add to that, I mean, that's a great approach. I used to find when I was doing this, just asking a good open-ended question, like what's been the most difficult part of this for you so far? They would usually tell me right away. If there was some extreme urgency, mom died, we got to get dad to nursing home, we need to sell right away, or we're 6 months behind on the payments. If there's an extreme urgency, it's probably going to be an investor offer. If not, if the house is free and clear and they have time to market it and they don't present you with some urgency and they don't have any major issues, it's probably more likely to be a real estate listing. But and if they're iffy, that's a great strategy. Just give them both options. Right. And I think I've shared before, as an investor, the investor deals I did, when people asked for both options, I would give them an honest opinion. I remember saying to a guy, like, honestly, if you're not in a big hurry, it's probably worth 300. But if you're looking for a quick sale, I'm probably around 2.25. And the guy called me back a week later and said, everybody else told me it was worth 180. I mean, be honest with people. They can run CRMs. They know the reality. If they do ask you for two strategies, and Bruce, maybe if they're an absentee owner, you kind of have to do it that way. If they're local, you may want to sit down and do that face to face, and give them the multiple options. But yep. The honesty will get you more listings than trying to close them on something that, like a prior caller said, close them on something that isn't real. So. Good.
Absolutely. And again, Kristen, congratulations on doing that, and even more congratulations on knowing that now you've done it. Now you're here to try to figure out the best way to move forward with a group of people that will help support you as you grow. And we're here to help you, and so the rest of people here. You're gonna find a lot of good answers as you go and you build your career. Continue to join us every week and do that, and certainly let's work with you to get some leads going, and off we go. That'd be great. Jimmy, buddy.
All right. Well,
it's that time.
Let's do it. I want to thank Kristen gave us a thumbs up. Same to you, Kristen. Thanks. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I want to congratulate Gil for being your team in the background is congratulate you too for being the winner of the week. And I want to particularly thank Scott and Mike and Jessica, Linda, Melissa, Lionel, Kristen for actively participating. I want to challenge each of you, take one idea that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share the results with the group. Have a great week, everybody. Same time next Thursday. See you then.